Undermined my wife's ability to juggle parenthood and household duties, but now she's proving she doesn't need me as much as I thought. I don't fight with my wife much. When disagreements do break out, we usually talk it out and things return to normal. I've always bragged to my friends about how reasonable she is, how her ability to communicate and empathize honestly amazes me. She doesn't hold grudges. She talks me through my rough patches. But this time, everything feels different. After a fire put her out of work, she's still earning her salary thanks to insurance. We both agreed she would stay home with our young son during this period. She has never loved child rearing, and we knew that before deciding to have kids. Still, it's hard to tell sometimes. She's a great mom, present and loving, even when I can see the battle raging inside her. I try to give her plenty of breaks. We co-parent. We split the bedtime routines for both our kids. We both pull our weight. Yesterday, a snowstorm hit. My daughter was home with my wife and son. I worked from home, holed up downstairs, all day long. I helped my daughter with her remote learning until noon, while my wife was outside in the snow with our son, shoveling the driveway and sidewalks, and keeping the house in order. My daughter joined them at some point, and from the sounds and snippets of video, she brought her friends over. The house was filled with the chaos of kids, snow-soaked boots, and the smell of hot chocolate. I worked until about 5. When I finally climbed the stairs, it was chaos. My wife was trying to do laundry while helping my daughter, who had slipped on the ice and hurt herself. She quickly sent the friends home and we managed to have dinner together. I took over cleanup that night, scrubbing dishes and still not having taken a bathroom break since noon. When I finally finished, I wandered into the playroom. My wife approached, looking exhausted. She asked, "Hey, can I go lay down for a bit?" Right then, I know I made a face. Without thinking, I responded, "I haven't even gone to the bathroom all day, and I put cookies in the oven." She looked at me, really looked, and right away I could see I'd messed up. "Fine. Never mind. Forget I asked." "Heaven forbid," she replied. Suddenly, a wall was up between us. Sensing her attitude, and realizing my blunder, I tried to backtrack. "No, it's fine. I'll take care of it all. Go take a break." But to my complete shock, she snapped, her voice loud enough for the kids to hear, even if they weren't paying attention. I said never fucking mind. I've been running around on my feet all day watching our kids and other people's kids, and heaven fucking forbid I ask for 20 minutes to myself. Again, I insisted, "Go take a break. I told you it was fine." But she was gone, lost in red anger. She stomped through with cleaning and started taking over with the kids, leaving me trying to keep up, feeling like anything I did was the wrong move. She took charge. The kids listened to her. In the hall, I muttered, "I think you forget I work all day." Viciously, she shot back, "Thanks for reminding me. I almost forgot." That stung. I felt like such an ass. I know she works hard, the kids are no picnic, but I do, too. I can't shake the feeling that being forced to stay home is making everything worse for her. She needs her job, her escape, and now it's gone. The next day, she texted me, the way she always does after a fight. She laid it all out, all her hurt, what my behavior made her feel. She reminded me she was alone all day, managing 6 kids, cleaning the house, deep cleaning the craft room. I tried to tell her I was stressed out at work, that I offered her a break, but she cut me off with, "I don't want your pity breaks." She wrapped it up with, "Thanks for the apology BTW. Only I hadn't really apologized, had I? But what was I supposed to apologize for?" Then came the weirdest thing. She asked me for my daughter's piano teacher's contact info. I've always managed that. I soon found out that she reached out to the piano teacher and asked that all communication about lessons and schedules should go through her from now on. That evening, I realized she'd done the same with dance. Normally she'd text me to ask if I could pick up our daughter from dance class on my way home. Yesterday, I heard nothing. When I got home, I found out she'd handled the drop-off and pick-up herself. I confronted her, frustrated. "I am very present with my children, don't make me out to be an absent father." She just looked at me, cold and exhausted. "If I didn't manage and ask you for help, you'd see them a quarter of the time you do now. And I'm done managing you." That hit me hard. Maybe I should have just agreed when she asked for a break, just smiled, nodded, said yes. But this feels extreme. She's completely icing me out of my relationship with my kids. It feels so petty. I keep looking at her and wondering, who is this woman? And how did we get here? Update 1. My wife started therapy because the stress of losing her job, even temporarily, and having to stay home was weighing heavily on her. Her struggles seemed rooted in a persistent feeling of uselessness whenever she wasn't contributing financially, and I watched her try to overcompensate by taking on more and more at home. She would never let herself rest. Any break she took led only to guilt, making her feel lazy, which couldn't be further from the truth. She's always been the least lazy person I've ever met. I did everything I could to support her. I made it my mission to remind her she absolutely deserved rest, and whenever I caught her scrubbing the floorboards for the 3rd time in a week, I would step in gently, tell her it didn't have to be done that moment, and promise to finish it myself if she would just do me the favor and take a little break. Sometimes she listened, sometimes she'd shoot back, stop fussing and leave me to work, and I'd back off. Honestly, I didn't mind the extra chores, it was worth it for her peace of mind, and therefore mine. She's everything to me, her happiness is right at the top of the priority list. Through all of this, we kept the kids blissfully unaware. I made a throwaway remark once about my wife not loving childrearing, something that was always clear between us, but what I meant was simply that, from the very beginning, we agreed she would never be the primary or sole parent, nor would she ever be obligated to give up her independence for our family. Her past shaped her into someone who needs to know she can stand on her own, she needs to feel safe enough to leave if she ever had to. That was part of our agreement long before we said I do, and I have never resented it. I want that same fierce independence for our kids. So I took on the role of primary parent. I became the one to get the kids to daycare and school and bring them home. My wife still helped when she could, but I made it my job to coordinate everything, no more relying on her to juggle it all in her mind. I needed a system, so I made a chart, clunky as it was at first. She pushed back, didn't want to give up control initially, but almost surprisingly, she surrendered the reins and, deep down, I knew she needed the break. I put our son back in full-time daycare, though she has a tendency to spring him out early, another way for her to find a little light in the day, I think. I know some people might expect a dramatic twist here, but that's really the heart of it. I adore my wife. While the idea of losing her makes me physically ill, it touches me to see others fiercely on her side and to see her valued as she should be. One small thing, I bought her a game, Pal World, on the computer. She hadn't gamed since having kids, convinced it made her a bad parent, but I insisted she unwind for a few hours since I'd already spent the money. Now I find her playing more and more to relax at the end of the day, and she seems more herself again. Thank you, video games. Call me what you will, pick at my character all day, but I'd never stand for anyone saying I don't love my wife. She's my person. Making her happy is my life's duty. I call this journey evolving because I can't say I've changed, at least not yet. Not enough time has passed. A while back, I'd been stewing after a fight with my wife, well, fights plural, over multiple stupid things I did. In the middle of my anger and venting, I realized something as simple but massive as not even knowing my own kid's doctor's name. I had a bit of a perspective shift. I wanted to be more than just present, I wanted to be involved, to step into the primary parent role. My wife agreed, so we started with me registering our son for kindergarten and juggling my daughter's activities. My work from home schedule let me do things like put the kids on and off the bus, answer the call if someone got sick, even if my wife was their first instinct to call. She'd redirect them to me, knowing I was closer and more available. This year, I signed up as my son's homeroom parent, even bringing the office lady's eggs for my chickens, doing all the background checks to be able to volunteer. The shark shop from 11:30 to 12:40 on Tuesdays became the highlight of my lunch break. Sure, the kids still prefer mom for a lot of things, and that's natural, but this shift has made all the difference. My entire identity was wrapped up in my life with my wife. We grew up together, literally, I knew her in diapers, and became sweethearts in high school, staying together through the inevitable ups and downs. Our whole family was built on that ability to love and learn and forgive. She was, without question, the best part of our family. 5 weeks ago, my whole world changed. My wife died in a car crash. She was just going out to grab a few ingredients for dinner, nothing out of the ordinary. The last words we exchanged were about dinner. She asked, as she often did, if I had a preference, and, as she often did, got my standard answer, I couldn't care any less. That was it. Those 5 words were the last thing she ever heard me say. A tidal wave of grief came out of nowhere and swept me away. I don't have the strength to fight it most days, but there are 2 little kids who need me. I can't drown. Everyone keeps telling me that, I have to be strong for them. I'm trying. They're back to school, back to some scraps of normalcy. The in-laws are gone. Now it's just me and my grief in this silent house. I miss her so much it physically hurts. This wasn't how it was supposed to end. I took her for granted. I didn't deserve her anyway. I just want to die. I don't know if I can survive this. I want to stay for my kids, but how do I do that? How do I keep breathing without Katie? I'm so angry at the universe. This isn't right. My kids are just 9 and 5. It's been impossible. I have so many issues, but one stands out and keeps me awake. My daughter, my 9-year-old, is refusing to accept that her mother is gone. She doesn't cry. She won't talk about it. If I try to bring it up, she closes up, gives short answers, or leaves. It's so out of character for her. She's usually the one who cries over a sad song or a stubbed toe. On the other hand, my son cries himself to sleep nearly every night, begging for his mommy. I've even lost it in front of him, shouting, "So do I," but she's not here. I'm terrified I'm failing both of them. We're all in therapy, and both the therapist and Google tell me this is normal, but nothing feels normal anymore. I'm struggling to hold it together, to find some path forward when every step feels impossible and every day heavier than the last. Screaming into the void for someone, anyone, who might know how to help me help my kids. My wife, my best friend, is gone, and my daughter won't speak about her mother at all. Whenever I bring up her mom, she just withdraws completely. I don't know how to do this without her. I can barely talk about her these days. God, I hate saying this, but it's easier to talk about my daughter than my son. My little boy always used to be wild and independent, running around with that fearless spark in his eyes. Now he won't let me out of his sight for even a second. He's always with me, shadowing my every step. If he can't find me after calling out once, he just dissolves into tears and becomes inconsolable. It breaks something inside me. I know I should help him, but all I can feel sometimes is exhaustion. And my daughter. She gets so frustrated by his outbursts. She calls him a baby and flees to her room, slamming the door and shutting the world out. I understand her anger because I feel it, too. The grief sits heavy inside me, and I can't even address her pain, because I'm drowning in my own. My son clings to me so hard, I can barely breathe. Sometimes, when he cries out for his mother, I find myself crying right alongside him. I know I shouldn't, but Jesus, Katie, this isn't the way our lives were supposed to end up. I am so alone. I don't want to be here anymore. Missing Katie has become this constant, gnawing pain I can't shake, like something alive under my skin. I barely sleep, and eating feels wrong. I've only managed 3 showers since she's been gone. Work claims they're being lenient with me, but they can't understand, not really. Their wife didn't die bleeding out in a car, alone. Don keeps asking if I can help out whenever I can manage, but the truth is, Katie, I can't manage. I can't do any of this without you. If only we could turn back time. God, if I believed in anything, I'd bargain my own life away for hers in a heartbeat. She was the best of me, really, my better half in every way. I wish I'd cherished her more, loved her better, somehow saved her. Now the kids and I are just adrift, like the sail's been sliced from our little boat and we're bobbing hopeless, out at sea, clutching to what's left, completely lost. Our oldest, is hurting in silence. I worry about her so much, but I did get her into this therapy program her cousin told me about, a farm where they use animals to help. The cousin even helped by making the call. I see how much is struggling. She never wants to talk about her mother, she just wants to move, to escape. She skates every day now, never stopping. Just months ago, we could hardly convince her to go skate. Now she'll do anything to run from me, from our home, from the grief. She stays with the Clausers a lot. I know being with friends brings her a brief moment of peace, but I miss my little girl so much. My son, is worse. He's just 5, and yet paralyzed by the fear of death. Katie was always so soft and patient with him. Now he's left with me. Every night, he crawls into her spot on the bed, pressing his small face against her pillow so he can breathe in the last traces of her scent. I even took the top pillowcase off and put it in a plastic bag, to try and keep her smell for as long as I can. He asks about her death constantly. I know at 5, he's confused and curious, but every time I have to answer it's like tearing myself open all over again. I can see the fear in his eyes, that I could leave too. If I stray from his eyesight for more than a minute, he panics and calls out for me. At school, it's no different. He's cried so much he's been sent home twice just this week. And the therapist won't take kids under 8, so now I have to find someone to help him, soon. There's so much I don't know how to do. So much I can't manage without her. Katie, my love, mostly I'm afraid. I can't shake this terror that you died alone. I'm haunted by thoughts of the pain you felt. They told me it was quick, that your cause of death left little time for suffering, but the way your father proudly said you went out, fighting, and that the doctors saw signs of defensive efforts, I just know there were those moments where you realized what was happening. I can't stop wondering if you were scared, if you were cold, if you called out for me. This can't be our life, Katie. It just can't. Update 2. I picked you up today, Katie. The funeral home called and said you were ready, like we'd sent shoes out to be resold. I didn't know what to do with my hands in there. The director was soft-voiced and careful and asked if I wanted help carrying you, which made me laugh once and choke on it. You were in a square white box with a brass latch and a card taped to the top with our last name misspelled. I carried you out like a cake I was afraid to drop. I told me to buckle you in. He said it the way he asks for water, like it's obvious. He climbed in first and patted the passenger seat, so I put you where you always sat, pulled the belt across, clicked it in, made a joke I didn't feel about safety first, and drove you home like that. E stared straight ahead, arms crossed so tight her elbows looked like bird wings. Nobody talked. I fell asleep holding my sleeve. I put you on the mantle because I didn't know where else to put you. It felt wrong to put you anywhere, like there's a right shelf for your mother. There was a bunch of dust up there because you were always the one who could reach and cared enough to get a ladder. I didn't touch the dust. I pressed his cheek to the box like it might be cool. E went upstairs and shut her door without even brushing past me. The house swallowed the sound and gave me back my own breathing. The school called the next morning. I was on the floor by the coffee maker because that's where I ended up after I opened the fridge and saw the Tupperware with your handwriting on masking tape, sauce for Tuesday, and sat down like my legs decided for me. The call jolted me back. A boy in E's class made a "your mom" joke. He didn't know. E shoved him into a cubby so hard he hit his head. The nurse said he's okay, but they needed me to come in. She was waiting with her backpack on her lap and her hood up in the office. Mrs. Shipley said words like triggering a number of days and E stared at the floor and didn't blink. I signed something and apologized to a mother who tried to look sorry for me and also wanted to be angry. In the car, E slammed the seatbelt across her chest and said, without looking at me, he didn't know. I said I understood. She shrugged like I'd accused her of something. We pulled into the driveway and she made it to the front door before she saw the box on the mantel again. Her shoulders went up all the way to her ears and she went upstairs. I could hear her roller skates go on. She started going back and forth across her room like she was trying to smooth a wrinkle no one else could see. The tow yard called that afternoon. They found her purse when they were cleaning the car. Effects, the guy said, like he was handing over a vacuum bag. The place smelled like rubber and cigarette butts ground into ice. Your door was torn open like a can of soup. I touched the steering wheel and my fingers came away black. There was still a hair tie around the shifter and one of your bobby pins wedged into the carpet on the passenger side. Your chapstick was under the seat, the one you always bit the cap of, little half moons. In the purse, a grocery list with your loopy handwriting, cilantro, chicken stock, sour cream, limes, tortillas. At the bottom, you wrote ask E about the blue dress or white? In parentheses like a thought you wanted to hold on to. The tow guy was talking to me about signing out the personal items and I threw up into my scarf. He patted my shoulder like a mechanic who doesn't know what to do with a crying engine. There was your phone. I held it like it might shock me. It was dead. Back home, I plugged it in and stared at the black screen until the apple lit up and I remembered your passcode without wanting to. My birthday, stupid. Everything was normal inside like you were going to grab it and take it back out of my hands. There were 6 texts from a group chat about a recipe you'd sent them Tuesday. There was a half-typed note about a dentist appointment for A I never knew she'd moved. There was a video from yesterday afternoon I hadn't known existed. A at the kitchen table banging a spoon, E gliding through the frame muttering about math, your voice off camera going, okay, chaos gremlins, let me in, and then laughing. I watched it 5 times. I called E downstairs and she stood behind the couch like it was a wall. I hit play and when your laugh came through that little speaker she made a sound like something tearing and had to sit down. She put her hand over her mouth and kept it there. After it ended she said, again, and then, again, and then, after the 5th or 6th time, I don't want to forget how she sounded, to the pillow, not to me. I started play therapy. They had an opening for a 5-year-old with the doctor across town. There were little plastic houses and a bin of dinosaurs and a tiny car that looked exactly like yours except it was blue. I buried it in the sand tray with both hands. He made a T-Rex stand guard over the spot and told the therapist that the dinosaur was me and the car was me and the sand was mommy and nobody could take the sand. The therapist taught me a sentence to say when he goes looking and can't find me, my body is here and it's staying. It felt weird in my mouth, like a bad line reading, but that night when he woke up at 2 in the morning and couldn't see me and started that high siren cry, I scooped him up and set it into his hair. He put his fingers in my beard and said, say it again, and I did until his breathing got heavy and he drooled on my arm. He still woke up 3 more times, but one of those times he rolled over by himself without screaming. I counted that like a victory because I have to count something. E's farm therapy started, too. She didn't want to go until we pulled in and there were goats standing on a wooden spool like show-offs, and a donkey with winter fuzz named Mabel leaned her whole head into E's shoulder like she recognized her. They put a brush in E's hand and she worked it through Mabel's coat so slow and gentle it made my throat hurt. No one tried to pry anything out of her. The therapist just stood there with a mug, blowing on it, and said something to me about nervous systems settling near big animals. E didn't look at me once. She kept brushing until there was a pile of fur at her feet like a small animal. At one point she leaned her forehead between Mabel's ears and closed her eyes. I watched her jaw unclench, just a little. On the way home she asked if we could stop for limes. I thought she was messing with me. For what? I asked, and she said, tacos, so quietly I almost missed it. We cooked them together, the 4 things from your list, cilantro and all, E chopping like she'd always known how, A tearing tortillas into pieces because he can't not. We burned the first batch and A declared them crunchy soft, which is not a thing, and E smiled without hiding it. I found your sweater under your pillow the next day when I was stripping the bed. The blue one with the hole at the cuff you refused to retire. It still smells faintly like your shampoo. I cut a small piece off the inside seam, hands shaking like I was stealing from a church, and put it in a little bag for A like the therapist suggested. He keeps it in his pocket and rubs it with his thumb until he falls asleep. E watched me do it without saying anything, then took the sweater and put it on over her school hoodie. It swallows her whole. She skated around the kitchen in it, careful, like she was carrying a bowl too full. After dinner, she finally touched the box on the mantel. Just one finger, like it might be hot. Is she in there? All of her? She asked, and I said the only true thing I could say, what's left of her body is. She nodded like that was almost what she meant. I don't want her to be in there forever, she said, and I told her we don't have to. We can take her to the place by the creek she loved, the one where the kids climbed the roots like ladders, where you fell that once and came up swearing with moss in your hair. E said, not yet, and then, can I take some with me when I skate? And I swallowed around my heart and said, we'll figure something out. Later that night, I found her asleep on the living room rug, curled on her side facing the mantel, your sweater pulled over her hands. At some point in the middle of all of this, I answered a call from a number I didn't know because I'm answering them all now. It was your therapist. She didn't know, and I had to tell her, And then I was the one saying I'm sorry, over and over to a stranger who knew you in ways I will never know you now. She asked if you had ever mentioned writing letters for us and I said no, and then after I hung up I tore the house apart looking for anything. I found the stupid drawer where we keep every takeout menu from the last decade and the manual for a toaster we don't own anymore and a rubber band ball you made me when we moved in. I did not find letters. I did find, wedged between the Pal World CD sleeve and that leather journal you used for exactly 4 pages, a post-it with a drawing you did of all of us as stick figures holding hands. You had written above it, everything, with an arrow. I stuck it to the refrigerator where the calendar used to go and stood there with my hand on it like it might be a doorway. I still talk to you at night when the house gets so quiet it rings. I told you about E and the donkey and the boy who didn't know and the tacos that burned, about A and the dinosaur standing guard, about the way he says say it again like I'm pulling a rope he can climb. I tell you I buckled you in because our son told me to, because of course he did, because he knows rules are anchors. I tell you I'm trying. I don't say I couldn't care any less anymore. Even when it's about something small, like whether the cilantro goes on top or not, I say, I care, out loud, to the empty kitchen, because in the dumbest, smallest ways I can still choose you. Update 3. A paper came home folded in half with crayon smears and a clip art muffin smiling in the corner. Muffins with Mom, it said in cheerful font so big it took up the whole top half of the page. I stood at the counter with it in my hand and watched the sink drip, one cold drop, one hot. A was eating a banana like a corn cob. He reached over with the peel and touched the muffin picture like he could feel it. Is Mommy coming? He asked, the way he asks about the weather like I might have the button for it. I took a pen and drew a neat line through Mom and wrote Dad and then I wrote to his teacher in the space at the bottom, "We'll be there," and signed both our names without thinking, the second one catching in my wrist. When we got to the classroom the sign on the door said grown-ups and goodies in new black marker and I looked at Ms. Lane and she looked at me and we both nodded like we'd built a bridge out of a misspelling. The kids sat at small tables with paper flowers taped to the top. A said, "I love you because," with a big empty cloud. He gripped the purple marker and wrote in letters that leaned on each other, "You didn't leave." I swallowed so hard my ears popped. He looked up like he'd done a math problem. I put my finger under the words and said the sentence the therapist gave me even though my throat was tight. My body is here and it's staying. He pushed the paper flower toward me like a plate. The little padded envelopes came 2 days later. They felt wrong in my mailbox next to the coupon book and the water bill. Cremation jewelry, the receipt called it, like it was normal to need a tiny screw and a funnel shaped like a thimble. I opened one at the counter. The ash was lighter than I expected, more like flour than sand. It clung to the paper and the hair on my wrist. E stood beside me with the sweater sleeves over her hands and watched me make a paper cone. I said out loud, "I know," because the inside of my head was loud, because everything in me wanted to apologize for handling you like I was measuring salt. I tapped the cone. A speck floated up and hung there in the sunbeam like a piece of dust that had something to tell me. I sneezed and said sorry to no one and both children, and E smiled without showing teeth. We filled a tiny silver cylinder for A and a small oval for E, something simple. E threaded hers through her skate lace, fingers precise, like she was doing stitches. "Is this okay?" she asked without looking at me. "Yes," I said, and that didn't feel big enough, so I said, "It's right." She tugged the knot twice like she was checking a door. We went to the rink and I hid in the cold behind the glass with the other parents doing their scrolling and peeking dance. Mabel the donkey is a lot of things but she cannot be in a hockey arena, so this felt like a different church. E pushed off and did slow laps at first, touching her skate, 2 fingers to the place where the pendant hung, as if she was making sure gravity still worked. I put his face against the glass like it was a window on a plane and followed her with both palms, squeaking the whole way. On the 4th lap she fell. Not a dramatic crash, just a soft sit, knees sideways, palms down. I flinched like she'd been shot. She stayed on the ice a breath too long and then she laughed, once, a tiny bark, and stood up. When she came off she bypassed me and put her forehead to the cinder block wall and breathed into it. Then she turned and let me put my hand in her hood, just that, and said, eyes still on my shoulder. It felt like when she ran next to me and then let go. I lost the little bag with the sweater piece at school. I knew because the nurse called and said he is very upset, in the careful way, which means he is howling. I walked in and could hear him from the hallway, that high animal sound I know now. His teacher was on her knees with him in the coat cubbies, all those winter boots like sleeping dogs, and he was pawing through them, frantic, trying to unzip every jacket that looked remotely like his. I crouched. "Where did you last have it?" He slammed his hand on his chest. "My heart pocket," he said, and I wanted to get mad at the entire world for inventing a place like that. We found it 15 minutes later wedged between the radiator and the wall, dust bunnies clinging to it like it had grown a winter coat. He tried to grab it with his full fist and I said, "Soft, let me," because it could tear. I pinched it free with 2 fingers and held it up. His shoulders dropped like someone had cut a wire. He climbed me like a ladder, face in my neck. "Say it," he said into my collar. I could feel the damp from his cry through my shirt. "My body is here and it's staying," I said, and he said, "Again," and I said it again in the school hallway where the art projects hang low and a kid walked by with the yogurt open and nobody in charge of the spoon. When we got home, E brought me duct tape and scissors and an old pair of shorts, and together we made a secret pocket inside A's backpack and then another one in his coat, her hands working fast, like she was mending a sail. They finally sent the death certificates. The envelope was stiff and official and too thin. I opened it over the sink because I do that now, like all bad things need a drain nearby. Manner of death, it said, black ink on paper like anyone could look at those words and breathe normally. I folded the thing wrong and put a permanent crease through your middle name and wanted to cry about that one small violence more than any other. Later, in the fluorescent hum of the Social Security office, we took a number and sat in blue chairs that scoot when you don't want them to. I drew a dinosaur with a very long tail across the back of our take a number ticket and named him Mr. Stay because he thought it was hilarious. E put her hood over her head and disappeared into the space between two plants that weren't real. When the woman at the desk said widower, it sounded like a word made of dry crackers. I signed where she pointed without reading it all because I can't read all of anything. On the way out I bought them pancakes at 3 in the afternoon from a diner that smelled like bacon and bleach. E didn't want syrup and took the tiny cup of butter and spread it in a perfect circle on her plate before she let the pancake touch it. I put his sausage in his pocket for later and then forgot and sat on it. Your phone stopped working. It just went dead while it was plugged in and stayed that way. I took it to the store and the kid with a leaf tattoo behind his ear told me they'd recycled the number and there wasn't a way to get your voicemail greeting back, and then he said he was so sorry for your loss in a way that made his eyes go all slippery. I went out into the parking lot and stood in the yellow striped no parking area because the sun was there for once and my blood felt like ice water. I called the dead number anyway, hoping for a mistake. A woman I don't know picked up on the second ring and said hello? And her voice had your low rasp to it, and I hung up so fast I dropped the phone. It bounced once and the case cracked right over the corner, a little spider. When I got home I opened Pal World because your save was still there and my brain wanted a place to go where the monsters made sense. Your world loaded into a lakeshore with a campfire going and a creature named Gremlin 1 sitting by it, which made my throat go hot because of course you named it that, and another one called Mabel because you made a joke of me telling you about the donkey, and that day we both laughed until we cried. You had built a little fence around nothing and 5 steps up to a platform that wasn't attached to anything, like you were planning stairs to nowhere. I ran your character in a circle until the little voice in my head that sounds like you said, "Okay, Chaos Goblin, enough," and I closed the lid. E asked me if we could plant things. It won't be warm enough for months, but there were seed packets at the grocery store in the rack by the gum, and she held up cilantro and basil and a tomato like she was offering me choices at a tiny altar. We filled the long pot on the windowsill with the bagged soil that looks like ground coffee and poured in too many seeds because both the kids think more is more. I called them trees for ants and then tried to name each seed. E smoothed the top with her palm like she was putting a baby to bed. "If they die," she said, not looking at me, "we can try again." I said, "We will." We put labels on popsicle sticks and stuck them in like flags. I found one of your gardening gloves in the drawer under the towels, the blue with the rubber dots, and slid my hand in. It still fit you. It pinched the knuckle of my thumb. I took it off and put it back and shut the drawer too gently. At the farm, Mabel brayed when we pulled in and E said, "She's loud," with the tiniest smile. The therapist put a smooth stone in E's hand and said, "For your pocket," and E slipped it in and patted it like you'd pat a back after a cough. We brushed the donkey and a goat ate the end of my shoelace while I told it, "Seriously, shoes are not for mouth." On the way home, in the turn lane where the light takes forever, E said, "When we take her to the creek, can I bring my skates?" I pictured you falling with moss in your hair and swearing and all of us laughing and the roots like a ladder, and the thought hurt and helped at the same time. "Yes," I said. "We'll figure it out." She rolled the smooth stone in her pocket with her knuckles and said, "Not yet," like she was reminding me of the rules of a game she was teaching me. After dinner yesterday, E brought down a Tupperware from the back of the pantry, the one with the broken corner you wanted to throw away, and I said, "I can use it for screws," and then never did. She put the lid on the coffee table and took the box from the mantel and sat cross-legged on the rug with her knees knocking and unsnapped the brass latch like it might bite. "Just a little," she said, "to the room, to you, to herself." She pinched out a pinch like salt and divided it in half and put half back and half into the Tupperware and sealed it like she was packing a lunch. "For the rink," she said. I watched with his mouth open. "Like glitter," he whispered, and E said without looking up, "Not glitter," and he nodded like she'd told him a secret code. We did not make a big deal of it. We put the Tupperware on the highest shelf where we keep the weird spices and the birthday candles. Last night, after the kids were in bed and not asleep, I stood at the sink and ate a piece of cold toast because that's what there was. The cilantro sticks in the window looked like nothing yet. The house made all its small noises, a mouse in the wall or just the pipes thinking, the fridge deciding to wake up, E's wheels against her bedroom baseboard like a heartbeat. I said out loud, to the counter, "I care." It felt silly and also like breathing. I called my name from the dark and I went and lay next to him until he found my beard with his fingers and settled. E came down at some point and stretched out on the rug in front of the mantel with her sweatshirt hood half over her face and her hand on the baseboard like she was grounding herself. I turned off the last light and the house kept its shape. I stood there a minute and then buckled an invisible belt across the empty room because that's what my hands wanted to do. My body is here, it's staying. I keep saying it, until the sentence fits my mouth like my own name.